Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, my friends. The podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will, and today we're here to talk a little Critical Role. Back to our D&D B&B, baby. Blake's favorite phrase, favorite acronym. How you
Love
doing
the
today?
acronyms. I'm doing all right. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little slow rolling today. I'm just now getting my coffee, so hopefully that'll put the
Just now. That's early for you.
Okay, true. But yeah. Okay, well, it's not like super early, but I don't know, maybe you're right. But I've been cutting back from 2 cups. And so if I have 2 cups, it's not early, but for my only cup of the day, it is kind of early.
Yeah. Just for everyone watching, it's 10 o'clock our time. Will usually rolls into his cup around 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Well, that's usually my second cup, though. But yes.
Oh, that's fair.
But yes.
That's fair. That's true.
But yeah,
where
just
do we
trying
that awkward pause of like, so where do we go from here?
Well, that's kind of my point, though. It's just been one of those days for me where I've been kind of just slow on the uptake. Is that the phrase?
I'm all about it.
Yeah, we're gonna go with that. So yeah, not a bad day, but just still trying to get into it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Just working hard, and I never really know what to say to people. This is such like an introspective comment. What do I say to people? But
cue like hard. The music, like
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the George Costanza, like, just telling people you're busy. It's like, I'm just busy. I'm just really busy. So I don't know. But excited to be back to some Critical Role on Thursday. So the breaks are always, I'm glad the breaks exist. But definitely I find myself really ready for that next step when it's finally time.
Yeah. And not only that, but freaking season 3 is tomorrow as well.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. That really snuck up on me.
It snuck up on me too. So yeah,
that's
jam-packed.
Crazy. Wow.
Jam-packed Thursday tomorrow.
I can't imagine. That's just wild to me. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's a busy Thursday. Is it the first 3 episodes dropping, or?
I think so. I would assume so. But I haven't looked into it if they've changed the way they're going to roll things out, but I don't know why they would change it. So I'm assuming it's going to be the first 3. While you're looking that up.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. The plan is probably going to be to do a watch party in the Discord. I like I'm getting into semantics here. I was going to say maybe it's not an official watch party because we haven't we're only just now talking about it, but I will be watching those episodes when they drop, and for anybody in the Discord that wants to watch with me, we can make that happen. So we might make a special event. I just don't know when it's coming out exactly.
Hasn't it been midnight or something?
Well, it's weird because it comes out Friday. Yeah. But the past 2 years with the past 2 seasons, they always end up dropping at 6 p.m. Thursday.
Okay, cool.
Because I think that's midnight in some time zone. So it's Friday in Europe or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, for those of you that didn't know that, the episodes usually drop you can watch all the episodes before Critical Role even airs. Because I know some people are like, well, am I going to watch CR or am I going to watch Vox Machina? You can do both. So keep an eye on the Discord. When we figure that out for sure, I'll make an event. But yeah, when those episodes drop, there will be a watch party happening in Discord.
So
coming out.
Yeah, 3 episodes per week, 12 episodes total. If this is correct, surely this is not true, that they're all 22 minutes exactly. That'd be some very odd coincidental timing for each episode, but maybe
I can't remember how it has been in the past. Have they been variable?
I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway. All right, cool. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, so we got Vox Machina and CR tomorrow. So big day. Big day.
Big CR day.
So yeah, join the Discord if you haven't already. But yeah. And then we will of course have our Critical Role watch party as well, like we always do. So
yeah.
And then this is something I should have talked to you about before, but probably soon we'll be putting out something about Worlds Beyond Number as well.
Yeah, I think
this week. Maybe next week?
Yeah, maybe next week.
Okay.
Maybe this week. I'm not against it.
Uh,
We should probably discuss these things before
yeah.
we start to hash it out in it's like, what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometime just stay tuned is what we'll say. Definitely
Soon.
in the next week, whether that
Yeah.
falls on this calendar week or early next week, it'll be some spicy Worlds Beyond content, I
Yeah.
guess.
And I saw
So
they just put out another one shot, but this one takes place during the children's adventure, so I'm excited for that.
that's cool. Okay, cool.
So
And we,
yeah,
we don't have a
y'all.
date yet for the next chapter.
If we do, I have not seen it, but we might have one for all I know.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, once again, watch Worlds Beyond Number. Listen to it rather. For those of you Critical Role folks out there that haven't yet, you need to. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
But anything else?
I think that's it.
Well, alrighty then.
Well,
I just realized
hang on. I gotta get my recording going. Okay, I'm good now.
I didn't know the episode title, so I was looking that up really quick.
Looming threat or something looms. Did not like the title, is all I'll say.
I typed it in, but it gave me C2's
Looming is the name.
Looming. Okay. Excuse me. All right, yeah. So without further ado, let's jump into our discussion. But as you guys know, we like to give a quick recap. Before we do that, we cut that out, host it separately, which we might stop doing. We're gonna always do the recap, just to be clear, but we might stop splitting it into its own video. But anyways, if we're still doing that for now. So if you are on that standalone video, be sure to come check out our discussion, which will be linked down below. But yeah, without further ado, this is episode 109 of Campaign 3, Looming. So
108.
What?
108. Episode 108.
Oh, 108. Thank you. Okay, that's why I was panicking because I just looked at my notes and it said 108, and I was like, oh gosh.
I grabbed the wrong notes.
So, all right. So we pick up in the Temple of the Arkheart after this meeting that Bell's Hells has had with the Arkheart. They're kind of scrambling from that still and quickly realizing where they are and what's happening. Dorian does like a mass heal on everybody because a few people are looking pretty rough. But meanwhile, he remembers that just before this godly encounter, there were some emissary guards that they were dealing with that I believe he had cast Hypnotic Pattern on to distract for a moment, but that has probably fallen off now. So they look back toward those guards and they're there, but they're acting kind of strange. And they quickly realize that Ira now has like control over these two guards. Like he's currently hypnotizing him. So they ask Ira, like, hey, do you think you could like modify these guards and the emissaries' memories? And like maybe we could like make them forget what actually happened here and use that to our advantage. And Ira's like, yeah, I can try, but you know, basically above the table, Fey creatures are very resistant to magic, so it might be hard to actually pull that off. So there's this whole section of them kind of attempting that and like casting Bane on them to make them, you know, more susceptible to these effects, working on it. I think ultimately one of the modify memories succeeds on a guard and one fails on a guard, if I'm recalling correctly. And so I think they ultimately just kill the guard that it failed on. I think Imogen just like psychic lances him. And so the one that is remaining, when he like kind of comes to, he like immediately goes over to untie the emissary who had been tied up. But so then they quickly knock that guard unconscious, knock the emissary unconscious, and come up with this plan where they're going to like put on a play basically where they're gonna like wake the emissary up and let him like see the what's happening around him for like 10 seconds and then knock him out again so that like he sees a scene of Ludinus betraying the unseelie and that type of jazz. So I think Breus like disguises himself as Ludinus. Everybody kind of has their role. And they go through this not once, but twice to kind of like implant this like inception false memory in the emissary. And it's really funny. It's a bit chaotic, but they ultimately do that. And then after the second time that they put on their little stage play, and they're prepping for a potential third, Zathuda comes back to consciousness, who has just been laying unconscious this whole time, and makes a break for it. But luckily, Laudna had cast her haunt spell on him, which she made in the form of Bordor. And so they basically have a ping on exactly where Zathuda is. So Chetney races after him, hits him with the chisel, and knocks him out once more. But he did make his way like all the way outside the temple, which means that Gloamgut was able to swoop in and like come and try to grab the emissary's unconscious body. So combat basically begins initiative. Half of Belcells is in the temple, half of them had been chasing the emissary. So it's a bit chaotic, but ultimately what happens is Orym kind of just makes the call to make strikes at the emissary's unconscious body, which ultimately kills him. I think it's that in between one natural death saving
Uh,
throw that
Zathuda's
Zathuda,
body.
sorry, excuse me, sorry, the Zathuda, yes. So Zathuda dies. When that happens, Gloamgut freaks out. And around the same time, Fern has made her way out. And so she slices her hand to like show blood and then like shows it to Gloamgut saying like, I'm family. And she rolls a crazy high persuasion. I think it's like 31 or something like that. And it's successful. Gloamgut basically calms down and combat kind of halts for the moment. And so they're like, okay, well, we got to get out of here. And so they ultimately decide to go to Maury's. But now the idea is, well, how do we get there? Like, because we can't teleport with the staff. Ira's out of spell slots from the modify memories. So they message up Nana Mori. She's like, okay, I can come help get a few of you, but there's no way I can carry all of you, especially with your prisoners. So they ultimately talk about this, concoct up a plan that Dorian is going to summon his spectral seed and take the emissary with him. Mori is going to come grab a couple, and then Gloamgut, they actually, with Fern's help, have been able to talk him into carrying the rest. So they group everybody up and start heading to Maury's, and that's where we go to break on the first half.
So coming back, I'm gonna try to remove any personal feelings on this second half. Coming back to the second half, the first order of business is the body of Zathuda, and Imogen points out that she has speak with the dead, and they basically talk about, is there anything we don't know that we'd want to know about Ludinus and Ludinus's plan? Well, Grandmother Mori mentions, why use that spell when we can take him to the loom? And after the fact, there's a conversation with Dorian and Imogen, which I'll reference in a minute, of them being like, "Ooh, the loom, that could be really fun." So they take him to this, she takes them to this device that essentially lifts up Zathuda's body, and then in like true Hellraiser vibes, like begins like to strip away all of his flesh, strip away all of his muscle, basically like severs him to effectively pieces, and then like reconstitutes and stretches his body out. And essentially, Zathuda is transformed into this item of horror, a stretched sheet of like leather tannin with his face like pressed in the center of it. The group is fairly horrified at this, other than Fern, who is seemingly like disassociated from this whole thing. And Grandmother Mori turns to her and says, like, where should we put it? Like, where should we put this decorative piece? And I think she says, like, the tiki bar or what have you. So takes the tannin item, puts it there, and Zathuda is seemingly permanently cursed in this form to remain for, I guess, presumably the end of time. In
Yikes.
this, he is aware that he is this object now, and Fern begins to have a conversation, sort of like a long-awaited conversation with her dad, asking about really Ludinus's plans, but also like some honest conversations on like, why have you done the things that you have done? Coming out of this conversation, just some quick notes from the top. He, as we kind of already understood, hates Ludinus, and regardless of what happens, he charges Fern with the mission to go and kill Ludinus. They ask him, how do we convince the Unseelie court not to join Ludinus? And he essentially says, like, they have to believe that it's a failed mission. Like, the Unseelie Court has kind of waffled on this line of will we join or won't we? Because that's always been kind of our MO for many years. And they need doubt inspired into them that this possibly is not the right plan. They also ask if there's anyone else who's looking to betray Ludinus. He's not sure. But they also ask about the nature of the Ruidian army, and he describes thousands of soldiers, thought eaters, Vidulches, the beasts of Ruidus, Ozo Kruth, who has his own Vidulch that's been genetically modified and tortured by the Weave Mind to create this massive beast. And he gives this very biting line of this isn't like an expedition force to Exandria. It's an invasion. It's an extermination force to wipe out all life on Exandria. And they're like, all right, that sounds pretty bad. We should probably do something about that. And the Sorrow Lord also says to Fern, you know, my whole life I've been trying to prove myself, but you are the thing that I've always wanted. You are the creation that I always wanted for myself. Go become the vessel and essentially like claim your destiny is basically what she's charged with. They basically say goodbye to him, and he kind of laments like, I'm furniture now. This is not the life I wanted. But Fern does give a very poignant, you know, it's not too late to sort of reconnect with your daughter. Like there's still hope. And oddly enough, you leave this, or at least I left this feeling kind of bad for Zathuda. And even the people at the table were like, I kind of like him. This feels kind of bad. But Imogen, by the way, vomits. And just at the sight of this horror, and then later with Dorian is like, what are we doing? Like, this is pretty messed up. They still have the nature of the single guard and the emissary who've been knocked out. And they decide to do some modified memory shenanigans to convince them to go back to the Unseelie Court. The modified memory is successful on the guard with some very creepy description of like carving open basically stitching his brain in a way to make him believe that Ludinus has betrayed them. But then we have like a 15-minute scene of trying to modify the emissary's memory, and the emissary just cannot roll low enough. And Matt is rolling in front of the table, keeps rolling like dirty 20s, high rolls. We have multiple Banes, I think 2 or 3 Bane spells. I think it was 2 Bane spells cast from Laudna. We have multiple silvery barbs, I think 4 silvery barbs to try to make this modified memory work. And ultimately, everyone uses all of the spell slots they have, and they are unsuccessful on this emissary. To finally the point they get to where they're like, all right, well, we just got to kill this guy. And we get this horrifying moment of Grandmother Mori basically like putting him in a corner as like a spot of like the garden, and then his body like pops into a plant, like eyeballs pop out, like vines crawl out of him, and he becomes a bush, like a display item in this garden. And they're like, all right, well, that's taken care of, as terrifying as that was. And then we have sort of like the age-old conversation of like, all right, so what are we doing about Predathos and the gods? They have this conversation. They have kind of this back and forth. They're like, yeah, the Archheart was kind of compelling. What do we do? Who was the other god that the Archheart referenced? And Laudna says, you know, I feel pretty strongly that it's likely the matron, because that's who the Archheart told me to go find. So I think it's probably that individual. We even have a line from Chetney on like, can we even trust the Archheart? Like, is this like him trying to get us to pull the strings? Like, what's happening here? And they're like, yeah, it's kind of a coin flip, to which Orem has this really awesome moment of just basically like slamming his foot down and being like, hey, we're talking about all life on Exandria. We're talking about the future of our world. It's not a coin toss. Like, we need to commit to whatever we're going to do. We need to decide and commit to it, and I'll make sure we get there safely. But they decide, you know what, maybe the next best path is to talk to the matron. People start to kind of go to bed for the night. We do have Bumpers, the furry alligator creature who like jumps into a hot spring with them as they're kind of relaxing for the evening. It's very terrifying, kind of a theme for this place. But separately, Breas kind of steals away and throws his ink on the wall. and basically prays to whatever god would listen to say, hey, should we kill Ludinus? What should we do? And that ink forms into basically, I think it was like devil horns and like an iron crown, seemingly Asmodeus. And he hears a voice that basically says, essentially tells him to free Predathos, chase the other gods away, and then we will be the ones to remain. This incredible moment is interrupted by grandmother Mori, who's like, "Oh, hi, I love your art." And then Breas is like, "Do you want some company tonight?" And they steal off together to spend the
Bow
evening
chicka
together.
wow wow.
And then the final scene we get in this second half is Fern goes out to spend the evening with Gloamgut because Zethuda had asked Zethuda about what do I do with Gloamgut, and Zethuda said maybe Gloamgut wants to be free, and it's unlikely he could exist and be happy in Exandria outside of this plane. So Fern decides to spend sort of one last evening with Gloamgut. Ashton joins her, and they relax with Gloamgut until the three of them finally fall asleep. And that is where our episode ends. Episode 108, Looming. And if you're watching just our recap, check out the episode description for our full thoughts about this episode.
Pop, pop. Also, I have a horrific idea for the thumbnail. So I don't know if that's what we'll end up going with, but apologies to
Okay.
everyone if that is.
Maybe we can. Am I the only one? We were talking about it in the watch party. I was very uncomfortable with this second half. This was like it just kept getting worse. Like from Zethuda to the emissary. Like we kind of joked about, are we the baddies? But like grandmother, I keep kind of say grandmother Wren, by the way.
Yeah, I caught that almost happen in the recap.
Yeah, I keep wanting to say it. This lady's bad. Like,
yeah, I mean,
bad.
Yeah, I like. So I agree. Like what would happen was messed up. So don't misquote me, as I know you like to do when
you love the baddies. You love the baddies.
Here's what I like. I like that Matt did that. I like that Matt. I don't want to say like I wouldn't call it like a consequence to their actions, but I feel like that's kind of how it is. Like, you know, you come to this, like you sit at the table with, you know, archfey hags, you're going to have horrific things happen.
Yeah.
So I liked that, like there kind of were consequences to, well, one, killing him, and two, deciding to take him to Maury's, who was like his mortal enemy, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely horrific.
Yeah, and Will and I talked a little bit about this over text. Above the table, love the episode, love the decisions. Within the table, I was fully disturbed, and this is a very morally ambiguous group, I feel like. And I kind of wonder, beyond like the above the table, like we're the good guys, we have to do like for the sake of the story. Maybe that's a little too heavy-handed to describe it that way. They're not gonna be like full murder hobos, is kind of what I mean.
Right.
But aside from that like line of thinking, I kind of wonder like what's like the compelling reason like keeping them like not just like bouncing and being like, all right, we're just gonna do our own thing. I guess there's Liliana is the biggest tie for Imogen.
Well, in terms of like, well, I guess like the world will end as far as they're concerned, right?
I guess why does this group care?
I mean, I would say in a vacuum, like now they've had a lot of things happen to them that kind of directly involve them in this. But like in a vacuum, I would say just their own self-preservation would be like the main reason.
Yeah, I guess so. That's fair.
But I get where you're coming from. They don't like, they're not like paragons of justice.
And I kind of like that too. I mean, I kind of like that it's not the stereotypical, you know, what's the guy from the D&D movie with Chris Pine, the paladin?
Oh yeah. Like, I don't remember his name.
The noble warrior. You know, I kind of like that. You know, it's not we must smite all evil.
I heard that. Random side note. I heard that was at one point going to be. Is it Drist? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the character.
Yeah,
the lore character. I don't know anything else about it.
Yeah,
But
and I might be butchering it, but there's like some very famous like set of novels where like
yeah,
Drizzt, it's like
yeah,
Drizzt.
yeah, that's it.
So I think they were like working with the IP, and like originally that paladin was gonna be like Drizzt, like he was gonna come
Oh,
in
that's
and
cool.
like be the. There's a term for that in writing or whatever it's
Yeah,
called, like
yeah,
but
no,
anyway,
yeah.
um,
Well, and it is pretty compelling. I mean, here we are talking about it. You know, you
yeah,
have like very morally ambiguous characters, and it's just very interesting. I don't know. I don't have any other word to describe it. That's a more compelling word other than just um it definitely keeps the door open for I wonder, early in this campaign we talked about like Orem keeping an eye on the group for like any potential double cross.
hmm
I kind of wonder, especially with that Breas vision, I kind of wonder if we would get any kind of, just like the without spoiling anything, but the moment from campaign 1 with Arcan, like I kind of wonder if we're going to get a
yeah,
just something.
yeah. I mean, I think it's possible, especially given the like unique circumstances around Breas and Sam, that like this is a new character that, excuse me, is only going to be here for like the end third of the campaign. Like I would think it would be slightly different if it was like F.C.G. and like there was a
Right.
huge like he betrayed the party at the end. But
Yeah.
like Breas being a new character, like maybe Sam would want to do something like
Yeah.
more adventurous like that. So I could totally see that happening. And I did want to talk about that plot point specifically with Asmodeus, but real quick before we go there, and I know I got the reputation now of defending the baddies, but I gotta say my quick piece is that
Okay.
you're totally right. They are definitely morally ambiguous, especially certain members of Bell's
Yeah.
Hells. Breas, obviously, even though he's pretty new. Chetney's had his moments. Laudna, I would say to some extent. But anyway, I also think that like really like what were they? It's not as if like in a perfect world, were you thinking like they step in and stop the loom or something? Because like at that point, like it's kind of what's done is done. I felt like
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if I'm a player at the table, would I have done something? I don't know if I mean, it would also depend on the character I'm playing, right?
mm-hmm.
Like, none of them are really the only person I could see maybe stepping in and saying something would be Orem, but I think of Orem as like pre-Bordor Orem and then post-Bordor Orem.
Yeah,
And post-Bordor Orem is, I mean, such a stupid comment, but is the Orem we see today. um, but is much more, it seems, ends justify the means.
yeah,
I could see pre-Orem, the pre-Bordor Orem is the Orem we saw in EXU, who they talked about hijinks about like stealing from like a ship or like a warehouse.
right,
And Orm saying, "I'm not okay with that. I'm
yeah,
not gonna do that."
yeah,
He was very much the moral, line in the sand, and, hats off to Liam. I mean,
yeah. What
it's
a
kind of
yeah. Sorry,
it's
gonna
just
keep.
kinda I was just gonna say it's kinda tragic, but it's just it's very compelling.
Yeah, a fantastic arc to go
Uh,
from that to where he's at now. So yeah, and um, uh, the only other thing I was gonna say is sorry, I kind of like lost my train of thought, but
yeah,
Zathuda was also not like an innocent dude. You know what I mean?
right.
I
Yeah.
do think it would be slightly different if it was like almost even if it was just one of the random guards, like compared to Zathuda. Obviously, it's not chill for anybody to get like tortured in that way, but like at least it was somebody who like actively was like evil and up to bad things, at least.
I thought it was kinda poignant, Dorian's comment to Fern, because Fern, in a conversation afterwards, was talking to Predathos and was like, "Maybe Predathos is just little guy who wants to wants to be free." And
Yeah.
I really liked, which I don't think she's wrong, by the way. I think I wonder if there is more of like just a primal instinct that it's its nature. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Dorian's point though on, Fern, there is real evil in the world. And I thought it was kind of appropriate too, because I wonder how that line was digested by Fern as someone whose literal mothering and like upbringing has been in the home of arguably a very evil creature.
Yeah.
Um, so nothing really to remark on that other than just I thought it was just very appropriate. I think that line,
Yeah.
but
Agreed. And I'm just, it's kind of a segue, but we've already talked about it, I think, as well. But yeah, I'm wondering about like Predathos' true nature because I think we talked about this a lot during, I don't know if it was during Downfall or when, but like it, it the way Brennan described Tingar and the tree, I first walked away with the idea that Predathos was one of their siblings, that like he was born in the same way of the tree that seemingly the others were, but since then there's been like kind of doubt thrown on that, and Predathos has been like considered like other, like something else.
mm,
But I to me, given that tree imagery, it does make sense that he maybe is their family,
yeah.
which would to go back into like, is Predathos evil or not, or is he just, that's his purpose, like maybe the gods aren't supposed to be
Mhm.
without predator. Um, so
When you
yeah,
think about it, in an interesting way, in Tingar, the gods did not rule over anything.
yeah,
So, Predathos is the one imprisoned, but and it has been sort of personified as this great evil force, and yet it's I think to Ashton's credit, and he has said this many times, and I really appreciate this line from Taliesin. Everyone deserves to choose. The gods sort of claimed that title and authority.
yeah.
They weren't always that. They never always had that. So, here we are talking about the same conversation that the table keeps having. Um, yeah, I don't know. I will say I had this interesting thought about the plan, like stopping Predathos, and I had this kind of curious thought of we know from the art chart that the gods are considering dropping the divine gate and stepping in and starting the calamity. And I had this thought, I wonder if Ludinus actually wants that. Because if Predathos is freed, they through great effort, they got him through one gate. Is it fair to assume there would be like a surmountable amount of effort to get through a second one? Like maybe Ludinus wants the divine gate
Mm,
dropped so that Predathos would be able to actually.
yeah, yeah. Because we've
I
we've
mean,
we've thought about that before, like way earlier in the campaign. Like, if Predathos gets out, can he even get to the gods behind the divine
right.
gate? So that's a
And
great point.
I like this kind of theory of like, it's interesting that for a wizard, this, probably arguably the smartest, most powerful mage or sorcerer in Exandria, surely he would think about the possibility of the god stepping in directly. Like, how could he
Yeah.
not?
I
Right?
mean, because that's the whole impetus for his entire life's
Yeah.
purpose in the first place. The fact that the
Yeah.
gods stepped in. So like that has to be something he's considering, right?
Yeah. And so, like I was saying, I don't know, maybe he wants them to.
I mean, I hadn't specifically put those 2 points together, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, at the very least, if it's not intentionally by design for that reason,
Mhm.
then at least Ludinus knows that that's a possibility, because how could he not, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely think he
And
has contingencies and tricks up his sleeve for sure.
and I think the gods probably also know that, because I was also wondering, like, what's keeping them from just dropping it right now and just stepping in? Like, why wait till the 11th hour? Why not just do it now? And I think and this episode did a great job of illustrating this. I think the gods know that there's a lot of unspoken or maybe even spoken tension and disagreements between them
Mm,
on, yes, we can drop the divine gate, but for example, I don't know about my buddy Asmodeus over here, who's really good at killing humans, Exandrians. So let's maybe wait before
yeah.
we, do that. Um, Which are you comfortable going to that vision yet, or
Yeah. Just one last thing on what you just said, though, is that I would agree. That's at least the reason we've been given, whether or not that's the
right,
true reason. But I think that's what the art
right,
cart said, is that like the only reason we haven't yet is because we've all come to the table and we cannot agree on the right course of action.
right,
But like, should you guys come to Prodato's doorstep, you're going to force our hand. And so at that point, we will have to, because we're not going to
yeah,
take the risk of getting killed.
yeah,
Um, and we also talked about like, finding out that they have the ability to remove the divine gate. So I'm
yeah,
wondering, like, just real quick on that, I'm assuming there must be some amount of like quorum, or like they probably need everyone to do it.
yeah.
So it's probably not
It's
as
got to be,
simple, clearly, as the betrayers being like, well, we want to come back. So I'm
yeah,
guessing they need majority, if not unanimous, to do it.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'm cool to.
Which wouldn't Vecna be like pro drop the divine gate? Like, wasn't that the whole like half success from campaign one was that he was sealed away behind the divine gate?
So he, yeah, I mean, he definitely. So originally, he was chill with the divine gate because it meant he was the only god on the other side of it. So
Right.
basically, he was in control, essentially. Now that he's on the other side, then yeah, I'm sure he would be team bring it down.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about this vision.
Yeah.
The implication was the matron is the other god, which could still be true as far as we know from the Archar's perspective. But this
Mhm.
very interesting vision of seemingly Asmodeus basically saying, "Yeah, chase them all away, and then we'll remain." I love the hubris, by the way, of Asmodeus.
Yeah,
Of
how's
like,
that gonna
"I'll be
work?
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be good." But um, I mean, this is like the most compelling reason for me to see Sam play Breas as a treacherous character. They don't know him. They gave him the benefit. We've talked about this with Bordor, by the way, of like the nature of try not to sneeze. The nature of a D&D table is, you're naturally going to give people the benefit of the doubt because you're playing together. It'd
Mhm.
be awkward to be standoffish. And
Yeah.
so it caused with Bordor the group to be a little less suspicious than they probably could have been. And I think in the same way, we're giving Breas an immense benefit of the doubt because it's Sam. We
Right.
love Sam. He's at our table. And I think this was a really interesting data point, especially like this will he, won't he with the Platinum Dragon and all that stuff.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And there's like at least two angles I want to talk about with this. The first is how what on earth is Asmodeus's plan? Like, what do you mean you're going to stay? Because like you would assume that, well, Prodathos will first kill you and then he'll go chase the other ones. Like so.
Yeah.
It, like Asmodeus isn't dumb, so like there must be some other plan in place for him to like avoid detection, or like, so like, because surely it's not just I hope he chases the nine and leaves little old
Yeah.
singular me as alone. Like surely that's not the idea.
I'm just not gonna go. It's like, yeah,
But
I mean,
yeah.
I wonder if it's hubris. I wonder if, Asmodeus is so cunning. Like, does he really think he can outwit Predathos
Bro, what
or
if
bargain or
that's what I was gonna say, what if they have a deal? What if Asmodeus is like, I'm gonna help you get out, you spare me when you do?
Mhm.
Or can
Yeah.
I don't know if this would happen, but can you imagine like that campaign setting where only the evil gods remain? That'd be really cool.
That'd be really bad.
um,
That'd be a
but
crazy campaign 4, by the way.
yeah.
Like, geez.
Um, so that I'm not saying that's what's going on, but that would make sense. Like I mean, is Predatos capable of striking a deal? I mean, he's capable of
Yeah.
communicating with Ludinus, and Ruidus borns. So
Yeah.
maybe. But yeah, that was really interesting. Also interesting that it appears as if Asmo. I can't remember exactly what Sam said in his prayer. Do you remember?
I know he
Like,
said, "Should I kill Ludinus? Like, what should I like? Should I
okay,
kill Ludinus?
because
Should I stop Ludinus or something?"
and maybe I'm looking too deep into this, like whereas like maybe Matt didn't consider the implications of like literally his word choice type of thing, but this implies that Asmo knows about the plan the Arcart presented them
Mhm.
with, which the Arcart claimed no one knew. You know, like how does
Yeah,
Asmo know about this potential chase them away plan? You know what I mean?
yeah, right.
But maybe that's me. Maybe Asmo's not meaning that specifically. Maybe he just means hypothetically, if Predathos got out, they'd have to run away, and
Well,
less like one of you is going to be a vessel that chases them away, type of thing.
and it's possible that the two gods, unbeknowing to each other, is has their own same plan
Yeah,
of like, "Hey, free Predathos. Don't tell
yeah,
anyone. I'm the only one." And then someone
yeah.
else has, the same thought.
True.
So, um, but speaking of like the vessel, this other interesting data point that came out of their conversation with Zethuda about exaltants
Mm,
disappearing. Are they
yeah.
being consumed by Ludinus to allow he himself to be like? Is he trying to force himself to become an exaltant himself to be the
mm.
vessel, or
Like absorbing them, like with a harness
yeah? I
type of
mean,
thing, or
maybe. We know he has like his 2.0 harness, whatever form that is.
yeah,
But it was very much vibes of like, the family dog split down and then telling the kids like, "Oh, we sent him away to a farm."
yeah. He went
Like
across
the
the rainbow
wording,
bridge.
yeah,
Yeah,
the wording was the wording was like, "Yeah, the exaltants have been sent away and they don't come back."
yeah,
So I could see Ludus being like, "Oh, they're on a special mission." It's like, okay.
yeah.
So,
Definitely feels like something sus. I mean, we knew that all the Rudis born were being called there for a reason. You know, like so I didn't think about the fact that of like Ludinus trying to like become a Rudis born or like gain the potential to be the vessel himself. That's interesting. My first thought was that for whatever reason they're being like fed into the process to try to break that wall down further and further. Like
mhm.
I don't know
I
what that
think,
means or looks
well,
like, but
this is someone with 1,000 years of rage against the gods. Like, is he really gonna put the linchpin decision in someone else's hands?
right.
I mean, and I think I think he's probably a bit insightful on, or suspicious. Suspicious too strong of a word. I think he probably knows there's something up with Liliana. To what degree, I don't know what, but I think if Liliana is or has been a close confidant in the past, for me, that would only push me farther down the road of like, I should do this myself.
Yeah.
Um, and he's lost Adahan as
Right.
well. So,
Plus, I don't think we've found out how the shoe has dropped on this yet, but the whole downfall movie premiere that Imogen told her mom like do whatever it takes to prevent that. Um, I'm, we haven't learned anything of that yet, so maybe she did put up some sort of I don't want to say fight, but like resistance against that idea. And if that happens, yeah, I think he 100% is gonna know something's up, you know. So
mhm.
yeah, I totally agree with like the hubris portion of like he's dedicated his many lifetimes to this. He probably wants to be the one in the driver's seat. So I could totally see him like trying to become that by whatever means. But also there's the whole question of like, is the vessel going to have any agency anyway? Or is it just a tool to free Predathos? And if it's the latter, then clearly he probably would prefer not to be, you know? But maybe there's no way of knowing which scenario that is.
I mean, the art chart seems to believe that you have some sort of decisions that or autonomy once you become the vessel.
Yeah.
Um,
At least
but
eventually, you know, like you could wrestle control type of thing, which I think is optimistic,
yeah,
you know,
yes,
especially knowing that we know that that was Abu's idea and not like something planted
yeah.
by Matt.
There's let's just be real. There's no happy ending to this story.
Well, because I
Like
mean,
I
like,
didn't.
like if Predatos, we were talking about this earlier, whether or not he's literally family with the gods, he's clearly like a god level entity. And I mean, literally in Downfall, we saw when the gods like fully awakened, their mortal forms like burst away. They could not contain their power. So like, I have a hard time believing that a mortal vessel could contain Predatos.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Now
that's fair actually.
that doesn't mean that, especially we're in a D&D game, we're in a narrative story, especially, I would be okay at the end of the day if that is what happens and the mortal vessel doesn't just explode.
You're
But
making the Reddit post on this doesn't make sense logically.
yeah,
But it kind of makes sense though if what has been imprisoned isn't like the sleeping beast, but rather like they destroyed Predathos and then sealed his essence away. Because we know like the glass is
yeah,
like not like his blood, but like sort of
he's like,
like the
yeah,
something like that though.
it's
So
like his
like maybe
previous form. It like
yeah.
petrified into the glass, basically.
Yeah, so like maybe the reason the vessel thing works is because it's like, you know, it's a very still weakened form or something,
Yeah,
or it needs to constitute itself in
yeah,
a human body, I guess. I don't
that
know.
makes sense. I could get behind that for sure.
Um so seemingly this plan to get the Unseelie Court not to join, I think they feel pretty good about that process. I
Yeah,
wonder how well they really struggled making this work, this plan work.
yeah, they did.
Which we joked a lot about this during the watch party on, you know, I think it was about the 3rd or 4th silvery barbs. Where and one thing I like to tell my table is the dice tells the story, and you get to a point where you're like, okay, I think we know what's happening here, but anyway, they really wanted to get this emissary mind melded or modified, excuse me. And I guess the point I'm getting at is I just don't know. They seem like they feel pretty good about it. I don't know how well this is actually going to play out with the Unseelie Court. If the Unseelie Court's going to believe that not more is happening or has happened here.
Yeah, I agree. Especially just because it was Nana Mori that was doing it, so maybe it's like more potent. That was kind of the
Mhm.
implication I got. But like, I think the Fae are going to be able to tell that like this soldier has been messed with. But I do think on the other side of that coin, I think even Matt made a mention, or maybe it was Zathuda that said this, that like the Unseelie are like slow to act to begin with. They would much rather sit back and kind of see where the cards lie before they make their move.
Yeah.
So to me, that serves as, not that Matt even meant that. Well, maybe he probably did on a meta level, but I feel like that means like they probably will kind of be back, and their plan will be successful in the sense that those armies won't show up because they're going to be, you know,
Yeah. Well, and I wonder, like, Ludinus. I mean, Ludinus knows what happened. Like,
right.
does he try to? I mean, we're gonna get into like a finger pointing, like, no, it was them, which maybe he doesn't have like the clout to actually go talk to Saminar or one of the people on the court because his own emissary, Zathuda, is gone.
Right.
The actual emissary who met with him is gone. So yeah, maybe it's just enough like rocky terrain that the NCAA court's like, we're just gonna sit back and wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, that is a good point. Like if Ludinus himself tried to mend that bridge in terms of like, no, this is what happened. Yeah, I guess it just, we don't even really know what he wanted them for. We kind of know
Right.
that both were using each other. I'm guessing he just wanted them for numbers and defense, but I don't know.
And then speaking of this, Imogen at one point, like out of nowhere, had to make a wisdom saving throw.
Oh
I
yeah,
wonder
yeah.
I, I wonder if that was a scry spell.
Wasn't that like wasn't that was that when they were like having drinks?
They were like mid something, like mid conversation or something, and then Matt was like, "Imogen, wisdom save," and
Yeah.
Travis naturally was like,
Did she fail?
"Ooh."
Or what did we do? She rolled? I don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember if she failed or not, but
Hmm. But yeah, I forgot about that. I wonder what that was.
yeah, I feel like that was a scry.
Hey, I didn't even think about scry. I was just thinking some like effect that Nanamori had going on, but scry makes way more sense because why would it have only been Imogen? Um,
I wonder if
let's
the party's gonna get a full rest too, which it seems like they're good, but as they were like burning spell slots on this emissary, like
yeah.
I kind of just wondered if the back of Matt's mind was like, "Oh, you're all gonna pay for for this." So Ludinus shows up with an army, and it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I have no spell
Ooh.
slots. What do you mean you have no spell slots?"
Uh-oh.
So, but speaking of grandmother Mori, what you mentioned, like the more potent magic spell, a theory I had, and it seeing the guard like with like the bleeding forehead and like the comment from the table of like literal like restitching of the brain kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So I kind of always assumed that Birdie and Ollie, the memory
Mm.
edits had been the Nightmare King.
Yeah, yeah.
And this gave me really strong vibes of this was actually the work of Maury. And also like with how, the casual torture, I guess, how evil she seems. I'm surprised that Fern or the party isn't more like, is Birdie and Ollie, are they unwitting like prisoners of this place?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm kind of nervous for them a little bit, but I
Well,
guess
I
there's not really
think
space to explore it.
I don't think Fern has an issue with it because it's normal to her, right? Because I mean, she grew up kind of an unwitting prisoner. Not that she views it that way,
Right.
and also like her crazy, horrific acts are probably very normalized to Fern as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great point about the memory. I think it's I can't remember exactly because it was so long ago, but that moment with the Malleus Key and Birdie and Ollie with the lens and it way earlier in the campaign. I feel like I remember them like seeing that the Nightmare King had messed with their memories. But
Right.
I think it could be both for sure though. Like
Yeah. And
so did Maury.
that's kind of what I was getting at too. And I
Okay, yeah.
mentioned it in our previous episode, I think, of like, was there something actually complicit between the two of them,
Yeah.
the Nightmare King and Maury, regarding Birdie and Ollie? Um, and the whole thing's very interesting of Maury not tricking Fern, but like writing those letters. Like clearly didn't want Fern going and looking for her parents.
Mm-hmm.
Her parents are with the Nightmare King, which is almost like their unwitting handler, like kind of
Mm-hmm.
keeping track or watching over them. And then there's a big like turn of like, actually go see your parents, like go take this lens to them. And then this weird, like now they live like directly under my watch, like in my house. Um, I don't know. I wonder if like that's a thread that'll ever get like a tidier like wrap up, or if it's just like sort of this unsettling, just like the not knowing of
Yeah.
like, man, this is
I
very
think there's
curious.
room for interesting development there, but I also think that it can just be squared away with what we know in
Yeah.
terms of we know that I just forgot her name. What's her mom's name?
Birdie.
Birdie. We know that Birdie like was similarly raised like Fern, like right. Like it seemed like Birdie was also kind of like one of Maury's things
Yeah.
to some extent. So that could just be like kind of the normal status of their relationship, especially like if Birdie's in danger, which I don't know how much danger she's in or not, but at least she has some enemies considering she was working with the Nightmare King and whatever. So I think it could just be sufficiently explained as like they're staying here to remain safe for now. Um, but yeah, I definitely think it's super sus. And you mentioned it, but not only with the fake letters, but the whole Fern's memory we know to have been tampered with. So that
Yeah.
spell we saw her use on the guard was probably what she did to Fern.
Yeah.
And we still, I mean, I guess you could chalk it up to the whole, I don't know the best way to put this, but the whole fake letters and stuff, I guess you could chalk it up to like a kindness from Maury in a sense. Like, I want her
Yeah.
to, her parents still care about her. They're just, and they're writing these letters. And so maybe the memory was to like help facilitate that same lie.
Mhm.
But it could very easily be something more sinister as well.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Sorry for the distraction. I realized my OBS, I guess it crashed. It just closed. So I was trying to reopen it, and then it got my video all jacked up. So anyway,
no worries, no worries.
and my mouse has died too. So everything's falling
Just all
apart
going.
over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All going
But
to the nine hills.
if I turn it off and turn it on, I get about 15 seconds to move my mouse around. So
Bro, that's
get back to
why
my notes.
I've had a
here.
wired mouse for a long time now, but I remember I just couldn't deal with the wireless mouse at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. What else from this episode?
I feel like there was one
Do you
thing.
think they're going? Are they going to the matron next? Do you think?
That seems to be the plan. I think so. If they can figure out a way, but I mean, I imagine they'll just go to like a temple in Vasselheim or something.
I like how their gut like first response to this was sorry, my allergies are really bothering me all of a sudden. Their first response was, should we go like topple a temple? And they were like, I think we can just go to one. I don't think we have to destroy a temple.
I don't think that's a
Like,
necessary part of the process.
I know that's kind of been our MO, but
Yeah.
you can probably just go in.
So yeah, I imagine that's the next move unless Matt throws something at them.
Yeah, okay. And seemingly it seems like Fern is gonna release Gloamglut as well.
Yes.
Like kind of having the last evening with it.
Which I think
So
I imagine that I agree. But I wonder if it'll be like, you can come with us if you want, but like the decision is yours type of thing. But I imagine that he'll go free. I don't know Matt. I don't know how Matt would want to deal with that necessarily. But like I could also see him showing up maybe in the 11th hour type of thing.
Oh yeah.
But maybe like I don't know how he would get from the Fey realm to the real world necessarily, but I could still see it happening. It would make for a cool moment at least.
Yeah. I can see that too, for sure.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the only other small thing I wanted to talk about was I liked how, coming off the Arkheart episode, it felt like a lot of the team was like, we found our answer. This is that middle plan that we've been looking for. Boom. But I liked how this episode, that really wasn't the case. Like the party still kind of split. Like Ashton and Dorian were really on board for this vessel idea, but other people aren't so sure. And I liked how Orem specifically was like, it's not something we can waffle on. Like the whole world, is at stake just because, we want the gods to go away. Like the majority of the world depends on them. And even though I know that we've talked about how they have not been able to make a decision on this the whole campaign, but I actually liked it in this moment that like it wasn't going to be as clean cut as we were handed a solution and now let's just run with that. So I'm really interested to see how they ultimately land on this.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I'm kind of like, oh, here we are having this conversation again. But on the other hand, I'm like, I really can't fault the party. Like, both sides are very compelling, and they continue to be more compelling. Like, just when I thought like there was maybe a development, then a god literally steps in and says, like, actually, no, I want you to push the button.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, great. And like, I loved Orem like putting his foot down and being like, we need to make a decision here. But I really love that he did that. I don't know if it will still solve the problem.
Yeah. There isn't an answer to this question.
Yeah, I agree.
Like there isn't one they will just ultimately mine to.
Yeah.
So that, and bringing us back to the Raven Queen, I'm very interested to see what she has to say because, she told them to come find her. So she seemingly has some information to reveal
Mhm.
or insight at
And
least.
I like that they asked, they talked to each other about, did the matron know that Vax would be
Right.
uh, in prison? I love that
Right.
that question got brought up because we chatted about that too.
Yeah. Because there's been like at various points in the campaign have wondered if she's been like in on it with Ludinus at certain extent points, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really interested to hear her perspective. So again, unless there's a curveball, I would assume that's maybe what we're getting tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless Matt pulls the ultimate wild card and says 50 years have passed when you travel back to the prime material plane and the world has been destroyed.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's all just it's wild, man. The last like 30 episodes have just been crazy. Maybe like 40 episodes. I can't keep track, but um momentum's at an all-time high. I mean, I'm really intrigued to see where we go from here. Um and it definitely seemed like we were full blown, let's do like the trio mission, Vox Machina, Mighty Nine, Bell's
Yeah.
Hells.
Yeah.
But this stuff that's happened before hasn't felt like filler. It's been like, yeah, this is just continuing to, raise the stakes, I guess. But anyway,
Ooh, you just gave me an idea. I wonder if in terms of like capitalizing on momentum and the market atmosphere, that's probably not the right way to say this, but like with Vox Machina starting to air this week, might we get the Vox Machina one shot in the next couple of months to like coincide with that to like
yeah,
build on the hype? Um,
yeah, it'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
but yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm very excited. It feels like we're in the end game. Like
Hmm.
maybe we've talked about this a million times, so we won't dive into it. But definitely could just be continuing to ramp up right till the
Yeah.
very end at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
excited.
as always, drop a comment on the YouTube video. Let us know what you think. We read all of them, try to respond to all of them too. And then we have our watch party in the Discord. There's a link in the description for the Discord. Welcome to anybody, no matter how serious or how casual you are for Critical Role. It's a really great watch party. So you're welcome to join us for that. And then, like Will mentioned, it seems like there's going to be an impromptu season 3 of Legend of Vox Machina watch party happening in the next 48 hours. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and obviously once after this first set of episodes, when we have a better idea of concretely how those are going to roll out, we'll do one every week. But yeah, just for this week, bear with us and check the Discord for more information about when that's going to happen. But presumably sometime tomorrow night for Americans.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's all I got.
See
Live
ya.
stream this Friday.
Yeah.
All
Live
right,
stream
yeah.
on Friday.
So catch us Friday afternoon, and yeah, y'all excited for tomorrow, and we'll see you then.